I didn't do anything to deserve that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having us for the casting director Q&A after Get Out. Did you all enjoy the film? How many of you were seeing it for the first time? Wow, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm Lindsey Weissmueller. I am a casting director, not of this movie, but I am here to moderate the panel for the casting team of Get Out. So please join me in welcoming Terri Taylor, Sarah Domeier, and Ally Conover, in that order. So I just want to go ahead and jump right in, and this is a question for each of you. You know, as a casting director, when you get a script, it's always nice to find some kind of personal connection to the script or the director's vision for the movie. I'm just curious, what in the script or in your conversations with the director or producers early on did you find that you could connect to on a personal level?
That's a hard question. I can't say that I've ever been in that position before. For me, I think the most relatable thing was probably introducing a boyfriend to my parents for the first time, but there's nothing that can compare to Rose introducing Chris to Dean and Missy. Like, it was not like that. But most importantly, I think that what I wanted to talk to Jordan about when I first met him after reading the script is that I had never read anything like this, and I had to hear what he wanted to say about it and what he wanted to make and what inspired him.
Yeah, very much the same. I mean, I feel like, honestly, at the time that we started casting this movie, I was going through a similar thing of actually introducing a boyfriend to my parents. We're getting married. Woohoo. But I agree. I feel like I was interested to hear Jordan's thoughts on it because I had never read anything like it. It was so, I just remember reading it and being like, oh, okay. And I felt like
that brain transplant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
oh, they're doing that. Okay, interesting. But I felt like I was so interested to hear what he had to say and to actually hear that it wasn't like a joke, honestly, that it was like a real thing and he was serious and he wanted to be just, hit it. I don't know, a better way to say it. Ally?
Well, my boyfriend has not met my parents, so I can't relate to that. That's happening soon. I can't necessarily say I related to things in the script, but one thing I really appreciated was it was one of the few, we work on a lot of horror thriller movies, and one thing I really enjoyed and respected was the representation of race, and coming from a liberal arts education, that was my entry point for it. And so that's how I found my connection to it, because it was one of the few things I read where I was like, wow, people I know would actually see this film as opposed to maybe just your normal bread and butter scary movie. And it's so much more than that, but I thought that's really what differentiates this film from other movies in that genre.
What was that first meeting with Jordan like for you? What did you discover from his vision that he presented to you that maybe you didn't get from the page when you were reading the script?
In our first meeting with Jordan, we learned that there was no one in the movie yet. There wasn't one actor in the film. We learned that a lot of people in town, probably almost everyone, had said no to making the movie, which is one of the beautiful things about Blumhouse and Jason Blum as a producer, is that the way he makes movies affords him the opportunity to take risks and say yes. And it wasn't like let me think about this for a minute. It was like he was standing on his sofa saying, I want to make this movie, let me make this movie with you. Jordan is incredibly soft-spoken for anyone who has met him. He's thoughtful and sweet and sincere. He knows a lot of actors. He had really strong opinions. We came with some lists, lists that we quickly adjusted based on what he kind of how he talked about the characters. Is there one name? No, that came out of that meeting. Is there one thing that I remembered? No, but I know that he redirected me immediately. He wanted Missy not to be as strong as I was thinking of her when you first met her. A little more nurturing. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Did you do one of these in the meeting where you had your list and you were like,
well, this is wrong. No. You know, it was an interesting, we had lists for Dean and Missy and for Chris and for Rose.
Yeah.
He immediately talked about Allison Williams, I will say that. And I immediately was like, that would be brilliant. She's done nothing. She's done her television show, but not one
not
single
a film.
No feature. And Jason's like, I know her. She's my friend. Like I know her very well. And so that was an idea that we kind of really latched onto really quickly. But the list for Chris Washington was really short.
well, that is a great segue into the question I think we all are curious about. The lead actor, Daniel Kaluuya, was nominated for an Academy Award for his performance in this movie.
Daniel.
And casting directors are not yet eligible for Academy Awards, but this is truly the closest thing that you can have as a casting director is for your lead actor to be nominated. So congratulations to
Thank
all
you.
of you.
I do. We agree.
Can you tell us how he came onto the project? Did he read? Was it something you saw him in, or Jordan saw him in, that caught your eye, that made you go with him?
Yes, all of those things. We talked about some more recognizable names, Michael B. Jordan or John Boyega. There weren't many other names that were that young, that were right, that we felt could handle the role. And we started talking about Daniel Kaluuya, who Sicario, I think, was about to be released. It had not been released yet. He plays Emily Blunt's partner in Sicario. But he had done Black Mirror, and we started talking about that right away, that episode of Black Mirror. Jordan, I think, had met Daniel, or had a phone call.
I think they had a phone call.
Yeah, they had a phone call. And we were immediately excited about the idea of exploring Daniel, and it was very fortuitous because it was the premiere of Sicario in Los Angeles when we started casting. I think it was August or September of 2015, and Daniel was in LA, and we were able to, we did a very small kind of session. It was maybe at most 10 actors auditioned for Chris, and Daniel happened to be in LA, and it was magical, and it was not that unlike what you guys just saw him do in that scene, and that very iconic face of the tears just streaming down his face, and our little audition space.
Yeah. And that is the scene that we did too, is the teacup.
And it's a long scene. I want to say, it was a 7-8 minute audition, and he was right there and completely offered everything that you saw in the film. I think that Jordan turned to us, and Daniel talks about this in interviews too, but he's like, should we tell him he has the part? Should we give him the part? Let's tell him he has the part. And that is the other beautiful thing about Blumhouse, is that Jordan had complete power to do so. Jason Blum is all about the filmmaker and giving creative control back to the filmmaker. And I think that makes for a good movie.
Has that ever happened where you book a role in the room? Has that happened to anybody? That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yes. Yeah. Nice. Congratulations, guys.
So that's awesome. This movie, the genre, if you want to call it that, is so unique. It's a thriller, it's a comedy, it tackles such, serious themes. Did this present a challenge at all for you in the process when taking the script to agents and managers, to actors, to make people understand conceptually what you were trying to accomplish?
100%, definitely. I'll just start by saying we sent out the script like we send out any script. We sent it with an appointment and some sides. And we had a lot of questions, and I think Ally probably is the person who typed up what we did next.
Yes.
And this was the four of us sitting in a room talking to Jordan. The people are struggling with the tone, and they know you, Jordan, from Key and Peele, and they're like, so this is a comedy, right? Or they were struggling with the tone.
Yeah, every single call was a list of comedians, which we weren't necessarily opposed to, but they had not read the material, so trying to convey what the film was about was rather difficult. Just most people assumed it was a comedy. And in fact, there were a couple offers that went out with a cover letter to Jordan that explained his vision.
Cover letter from Jordan.
Yeah, from Jordan that explained his vision.
That said, let me just first start by saying that this is a horror film. Like, I am inspired by Stephen King and The Shining and Rosemary's Baby and The Stepford Wives. And make no mistake, this is a horror film. And you may find, Rod funny, and tonally we're going to play with some things. I mean, I don't know if it was that detailed, but he definitely wanted people to know that it was a horror film.
And I think it being a horror film was an important element of the film to Jordan because there's a lack of representation of African American people in horror. So it was a good opportunity to use that genre as a platform to get his message out, because if it had just been a straight drama, it might not have reached as many people as it did.
Yep.
No, that's good to know. Because as a casting director, you're in such a unique position to come onto a project right from the start. You're often the first person to collaborate with the director at all on a movie. You're the first person hired. So you get a lot of one-on-one time where a lot of the crew doesn't necessarily once the movie starts to shoot. But from conception, or when you met with Jordan and read the script and started your casting process to now having a film that's nominated for an Academy Award, did you see this coming? At what point in the process did you see it coming, if not from the beginning? And what was the arc of that like for you to witness?
I didn't see Academy Award nominations. I don't think we ever start a film, ever. I don't know if anybody starts a project ever thinking about awards or even reviews. I know that I don't. I think about the script and the director and the amazing actors that we're going to bring into the room to read these words out loud for the first time. Thinking beyond, I think, is really not dangerous, but it's not part of my process. It's certainly not part of...
It seems like getting ahead of yourself a little bit.
I just like to focus on what we're doing in the room. The only thing I really acknowledged, and I think I mentioned this in my first answer, is that I'd never read a script like this. And I was amazed to learn that Jordan Peele was a horror fan and that he wanted to make a horror film, and that we were smuggling in an important message about a post-racial society that really probably doesn't exist.
We knew it was special. We knew it was a really special script with a really special filmmaker. That's what Terri was saying. But it's like anything. You just set out to make a really good movie. You set out to make the best movie. And whatever happens from there happens, but you're not thinking about it. And it's wonderful when it happens, of course. I mean, this is incredible.
It's incredible. Like when we premiered the movie at Sundance a year ago, January, it was a surprise midnight screening. They didn't announce it was Get Out. And the response was
amazing.
Amazing, like so incredible.
Amazing.
And that kind of eye-opening experience is a thrill. And we thought it was the beginning of like an amazing ride, for sure.
The actress that plays Georgina, Betty Gabriel,
we love her.
That character did not have a ton of lines, but it is one of the most gripping performances in the movie from my perspective. Can you talk a little bit about the process of how she came onto the project?
happily because we are like truly madly, deeply in love with Betty Gabriel. If you look at her credits and our credits, there's probably 6 movies
Good
or
amount of
7
overlap,
that are overlapping, and a television project. So we'll put her in anything if she'll have it. Well, I mean, we adore her, we love her, we believe in everything that she can do anything. But in the process, you meet a lot of actors, and in this particular scene, which was the scene where she's in the kitchen and we meet her for the first time, and Bradley Whitford's character, Dean, is giving Chris Washington a tour of the house, and he comes into the kitchen, and I think in the stage direction it says that Georgina is washing dishes or staring kind of off mindlessly, almost trance-like, out into the yard. And a lot of actors chose to really kind of latch on to that piece of stage direction. And so I was playing Dean, and Jordan was playing Chris Washington. And so I'm talking to Jordan like, come on into my kitchen. Here's the piece de resistance. I'm about to show him the kitchen, and I'll introduce him to Georgina. So I have my back to Betty Gabriel, and I turn around, and she is right here. With like the biggest grin on her smile, like on her face, like the biggest smile. Like it was the first time that anyone had made like a really bold choice, and her choice was like, I'm the matriarch, I am the grandmother of this family, and I am part of this recruitment, if you will. Like, and so she decided that she was going to be a part of this moment,
Front and center, like,
and
just.
my reaction to her was genuine. I was startled by her. I was like,
I was running
and I felt
camera,
like
and I didn't know if I should stop the camera, if we were gonna like stop the scene, because it was such a shocking moment.
And we just kept going, and Jordan's reaction was like, there's something wrong with her, which is what Chris Washington immediately started to, to feel. And, from that day, from that moment forward, we saw additional actors, and it was always looking for someone who was going to do either exactly what Betty did or something as courageous and original and bold as Betty Gabriel. Yeah.
That's pretty inspiring, I think, to hear as an actor. Were there any other auditions like that that just really stick out in your mind? Because I've definitely experienced this where you're in the room and somebody gives a read and you feel as the casting director, this is the one I'm going to go to bat for. This is the person that I am going to get behind. Were there any other auditions like that in this movie that you really championed? Perhaps they didn't.
Yeah.
Perhaps you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would all agree that Marcus Henderson, who plays Grandpa in the movie, I think it was a similar thing where he made an incredibly bold choice to, it's. How do you play an 80-year-old man inside of an 80-year-old white man inside of a 30-year-old African-American man's body? And he made a choice, and it was bold, and it was wonderful, and I feel like we didn't really have to sell it to Jordan, because I think Jordan knew how special it was, and it was a similar thing where the actors we saw after, he was looking for someone else to do that or to do something as courageous as that. And then finally he was like, no, it's just Marcus. We have to give Marcus the job.
Little things like not, improvising a ton, but just enough that, you respect the screenwriter, because Jordan's not only the director, he's a screenwriter. But, Marcus made a choice he tweaked the dialogue a little bit. And the dialogue that Marcus delivered that day in his audition is the dialogue that you have in the movie, about Rose, and like she's top of the line, right? Like she's
a real doggone keeper.
A real doggone keeper. Like it was like he was talking about a car. Like you got I'm not even gonna pretend to know about cars, but like you got different versions where you got the top of the line version of a Cadillac, and then you got the one that maybe more people can afford without the power windows. I don't know. And so that was a choice that Marcus made. But obviously Lil Rel, Lil Rel,
Please,
and I will never forget
that.
Lil Rel's audition and him with that Jeffrey Dahmer dialogue. It's unforgettable, like the delivery of those lines from Lil Rel Howery. It was.
And Erica. Alexander.
Oh,
That
and
was an
Erica-
audition.
Yeah,
we fell.
Erica Alexander was brilliant. She plays the the police detective who finds his story like ridiculous, and she had other jobs like obligations, and we bent ourselves into a pretzel from a production point of view to get Erica to Fairhope, Alabama, which is where we shot the movie, and because Jordan was like, I have to fight for her. I gotta have her. Like when someone comes into the room and does like that amazing of an audition, they need to be.
You can't get it out of your mind.
Yeah,
at that
can't get
point.
it. Yeah.
So I just want to ask a little bit more of a general question, perhaps not as Get Out related, but in terms of casting, what do you each feel make you good at your job? Because you are, we can all agree. And how do your strengths work together in your office to create the chemistry that you have?
As a team? I think we were saying right before we came in here, it's kind of luck. I don't know if we were saying it at dinner or right before we came in here. I do feel really lucky. I've been working with Sarah since 2011 and Ally since 2013. And so we're a group of powerful, kind, compassionate women who love actors, number one. It's respect for sure. We just really like what we do. We try to be kind to everyone and thoughtful and creative and see as much as we can, movies and TV, and fill in the gaps where someone hasn't been able to see as much TV. So I rely on them a lot in that way. I don't know if there's any special sauce. God, casting, you need a good memory.
Or good
Add
notes.
to that, guys?
You touched on it, but I think it's largely just love of actors, love of movies, love of the job, everything. But I think
Each other.
loving each other, of course. That's why we've been together so long. If we didn't love each other, it'd be over. But no, I think the biggest piece is love of actors and loving people who are so vulnerable with us and come in and just have to.
Lost on us. It's hard. Auditioning is not reporting at your call time, at 5:45. It's a different muscle that you're exercising, and I don't know. I think it should be really comfortable and really inspiring, and
we
do
try to make it
strive for
that way.
that.
We try to support actors and help, and I don't know, be there for them.
Yeah, I think we also approach every project in the same way. And what I mean by that is, you're right, we didn't know Get Out was going to be an Oscar success, so we didn't put more work into it than anything else. I think we treat every project with blood, sweat, and tears, and there are actors that we really like and like to try again, and like Betty Gabriel's a perfect example of someone who just...
And Marcus.
And
We put
Marcus.
Marcus in Whiplash, and then we put him in Insidious 4. And
Yeah,
he's in
there are
Get Out,
people that we love, but we're excited to meet new people, and we like to do the work. Yeah.
I wish I could remember something else that we were casting in 2015, so to give some perspective to that, because whether it's Ouija 2 or Like, Share, Follow, that maybe you were casting in that year. I think we really do try to put as much thoughtfulness and energy into every project.
It definitely shows. There's such great material coming out of your office all the time, so something to be really proud of. I also just want to ask you about your process at Blumhouse. You are in-house there, so scripts maybe come to you in a different way than they do a independent casting director. Are you, when you get a script, what's your general approach, the first thing that you focus on, and are there roles that you're expected to find names for, roles that you're expected to read? Is that outlined from the beginning? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Blumhouse makes a lot of horror thriller films. We are a low-budget film company. We make movies for about $5 million, and we have other kind of buckets of movies as well, but I guess that's our main division, is our low-budget $5 million movie. Usually the process is we get a script, there's a filmmaker attached, there's no development hell. It's not like we're developing scripts for years and years and years. We have a few of those, but that is not typical at Blumhouse. We are usually able to hit the ground running. There are very few scripts that are cast contingent. I can give an example of one that is, there is a little bit more pressure on the casting of the movie. We did a movie several years ago called The Gift that Joel Edgerton wrote and directed, and it starred Jason Bateman and Rebecca Hall and Joel Edgerton. That movie was a little bit more specialty because it really was a drama, kind of marketed. I mean, it is a thriller too, but it was really marketed to be more of like a thriller horror movie, but it was a drama that we smuggled into that, our format. And so we really needed someone like Jason Bateman to anchor that movie, and we knew that all along going in. So we had to do that before we could actually officially greenlight the movie. So that's an example of a movie that is cast contingent because it's outside the realm of like a typical horror movie. When we started casting Ouija 2 that Mike Flanagan directed, that starred Elizabeth Reeser and Henry Thomas and Annalise Basso and Lulu Wilson, who's amazing in the movie. That movie was, here's the script, which is a really great script by Mike Flanagan, who's a really great filmmaker. We just hit the ground running and started casting. Best actor wins, and that is most of our films are best actor. You know, most movies are not cast contingent. Yeah. Anything to add?
I mean, I think it's the best way to cast movies. I mean, especially in this format or in this genre. I mean, you don't need Tom Cruise in a haunted house.
That's actually probably not good casting.
Yeah, so you'd rather...
No offense to Tom Cruise, but for the audience, you don't believe it. You're like, Tom Cruise,
it can be distracting.
Yeah, you're not
on some level.
harassed by the girl on the wall. That's not happening. The other version of cast contingent is that we don't want a filmmaker to ever feel hand-tied either. Like because we don't have long pre-production. We're a low-budget film company, so we have 6 weeks of pre-production. And if we don't have the lead 16-year-old girl, we might be held over a barrel for somebody that we can't afford or will give away to, or we're settling. So that is a different version of cast contingent. Find your 16-year-old lead girl, and then the 6-week clock starts ticking. Yeah. And with us being an in-house department, there is no department head, figuring out the casting director deal and how many weeks you might be able to pay that key department head. We're able to start talking about auditioning. We can start auditioning girls 6 months, 10 months out from a film. And
oftentimes we'll go in a window that works for the right person. So we're fortunate enough to be able to wait for the person that we want to have. Yeah.
A lot of advantages. That's great. That's nice. I've never heard of any of this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take some questions that come from the actors in the audience that I have here. So this question is from an anonymous person for anybody who wants to answer. What is something that consistently sets actors apart from other actors in a good way? Is there anything that you see consistently that you like about actors?
I wouldn't say it's a consistent thing that you can all make the same choice, but just making a choice and being brave and being bold, like Terri said about Betty, or like I said about Marcus, like coming in and having a point of view, even if it's the wrong point of view, or not that there's necessarily a right and a wrong, but even if it doesn't work for that character, exactly. We'll remember you, yeah, and if you're not right for that thing, we'll bring you in for something else. I think just being brave and being vulnerable and doing it makes an impact.
Kind of like a De Niro quote. I, for many, many years, kept a little quote from Robert De Niro on my corkboard that was essentially that. Like, go into the room having made a really, like a choice, and hopefully a really bold choice, and it may not lead to you getting the part, but I assure you they will remember you. And it is true, I think, my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It speaks to what you guys just said about being thoughtful. I mean, there have been times where we have read people that have made the material better because they've had a point of view. And I think that's the best scenario that you can have. Is I feel like there have been so many projects where it's sometimes the material might also not be that strong, and making a choice can make that material more rich. Yeah, exactly.
All right, this question is from Michaela Campbell for anyone who'd like to answer. Because there are less casting workshops nowadays, how would you suggest an actor initiate a relationship with you or get in front of you other than an audition? Although that seems like the best way to have the opportunity to showcase.
Yeah. Is the audition. That is, I mean, and then I guess the follow-up question is like, how do you get the audition? Well, I guess, if you have representation, then I would like to think that your representative is reading and paying attention to things that you might be right for, and that they have relationships and can email us or call us. Not to go down that rabbit hole, but it goes a lot further if a representative is thoughtful about their pitching, and that their pitching is not every actor in their stable, and if they really feel passionate, or if you feel passionate and you keep calling your rep and you say, I really would like to try this, I really want to get into Blumhouse, I love Blumhouse movies, or love what, there's no harm in having your rep send that email. I really want to audition. I really want to meet them. We do our best to try and pay attention to emails and postcards, even still.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't throw them in the bin. Let's look at them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thankfully, we make a lot of movies. We make a lot of movies that shoot in LA. We can
At least we used to.
Yeah,
More movies are leaving town because it's really expensive to make movies here within our model. Which is scale, everybody. But yeah, there is an upside. There is an upside.
This is a question from Jordan S. Worthy for anyone who would be willing to answer. Would you consider it acceptable to record yourself doing a monologue for your demo reel?
Being really honest, it depends on what it is, but probably no. It's going to be a lot. I don't think you should have a demo reel if it's not work that you're really proud of. That you've been engaged to do, or I just think it's better to say, here are my credits. I'm building a resume. I've trained, and here's my training, and here are the few plays that I've done, and everyone has to start somewhere. That would be the advice. If an actor asked me, and I've been asked by actors before, and I was like, I don't think that should be your reel. I don't think you should be putting that out there because it's not ready to be seen, and the production quality is going to hurt you or whatever.
Yeah, oftentimes we'll say yes to pitches that might not include very much, it might just be a photo and a resume, but the risk of including a demo reel that includes you in not the best light is that we'll look at it and be like, we don't really think this person is ready for the size of a role, or they're too green, and that can just backfire on you sometimes.
So when you're reading for a role, for a movie like Get Out or Ouija 2 or any role that you are reading, do you tend to rely more on submissions, on agent pitches? This question is from Sage Ryan. I'm making it sound like it's from me. Shout out to Sage Ryan. Just naturally incorporating it. Do you rely on actors you have relationships with? How do you kind of pool together a session?
I think it's a combination of all of that. I think we love meeting new actors, and if we have an opportunity to have a role where we can just meet a bunch of new people, we definitely rely on submissions and agents and managers that we know and trust to suggest people that we haven't met yet. But we also
we're watching. Let's try and pull that person in. That's a huge part of it. Things that we're watching on TV, and there's obviously so much to watch in movies. it's all about meeting new people. Like, we're
100%.
really loyal, but we have to meet new people.
Yeah,
You know?
of course. You
And
work
we want to
on
meet new
too
people.
many movies not to be meeting new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up with a question from me for each of you, just something fun. What performance from an actor that you've seen in movie or television is something you wish you were responsible for, but you are not?
Oh my God, that's a
Hot
great
seat.
question. Oh God, there's so many people. I mean, the first person that popped into my mind is Claire Foy from The Crown, because I honestly am captivated by her, and I think that Nina Gold is like to be reckoned with as a casting director.
Oh, mine.
I can't take my eyes off Claire Foy, so I'll go with that.
Allie, you go.
I-
I watch so
that's
much
what
of
I
everything, and
wanted
I
to
can't think of
do.
anything right now.
You can say two if you can't limit
Yeah.
it to one.
No. But if you have something, please go.
No, I mean, I am proud of the work that we did. Like, I like our movie.
I'm really proud of Daniel Kaluuya too.
I
That
think
guy,
like
I
people would
am, like,
say
blown
that
away
if they
by
were
that.
not
Yeah,
Blown away
you
by
and
Allison
could.
Williams.
I have to say that I think our casting is some of, I'm totally bragging right now, but it's some of the most original. There's some excellent performances this year, but most people don't know a lot of the actors in this film, and so I think it's really original, and I'm proud of our film. But yes, also Claire Foy.
I think our film was really not easy to cast either. I mean, and it goes back to that very first question about reading the screenplay, and did people need more to kind of explain to them what it was? What tone is this? Is it, it's Jordan Peele, is it a comedy? Is it a horror film? And I think that it was not the easiest movie to cast.
Yeah, well, because you have to come up with that answer for people. So you really have to explore that for yourself first and have something solid to present to somebody coming in who hadn't read the script before, or hadn't met Jordan Peele, or hadn't been talking about it for weeks like you had. So, yeah, that was quite a challenge, I'm sure. But lots of success, and I wish you well at the Academy Awards for this movie.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you all for having us, and have a great night.